Boom. There we go. We're live with episode number this is episode number 3 technically of Monday Morning Dullard. What's up, Andrew?
Well, thanks for having me.
Sure thing. Thanks for coming on, man. Shoot, man. So striving for eternity. We met a couple days ago on Wisdom?
We were on the Wisdom app probably about a week ago.
Gotcha. And what is it called? Did I ask you what was the reason that? Because I came on Wisdom because of that. I know it was like one of those fucking mass emails that they sent out to everyone. Because like in the email they sent me, they were like, "You're expert on comedy," and I'm like, "What? Am I expert on what?" Like in what? Or I don't know if you got an email. Like, how did you even know about Wisdom?
I was supposedly an expert on podcasting. Because I'm the executive director of the Christian podcast community. So we have like about 45 podcasts on there. And so I do a podcast called So You Want to Be a Podcaster. So I was supposedly an expert mentor on podcasting. So that's how they reached out to me. But they are active in reaching out to people. They send a ton of emails. And I think anyone that has a podcast suddenly becomes an expert on something.
Yeah. They're reaching out to a lot of people. I think, didn't they just get like a $2 million like stimulus package or whatever they call it, like to like help them with whatever they're doing or something like that?
That I don't know.
Yeah, they just got like a big surge or something. I don't know what's going to go on with that application. It's a fun app, but I mean, the stereo application already exists that's just like that application but has better features. The only downside about stereo is that literally the worst demographic of human beings are on that application, so that's the one downside.
Well, I think that it's like Clubhouse was going to put an end to podcasting. This is the new one that's going to put an end to podcast. Everything's going to put an end to podcasting, yet podcasting is still here. and I think what it is podcasting catches a niche of people that are able to listen when they want. It's unlike a radio stations. You have to tune into who you want to listen to at the time they're on. So you have to schedule your day around the radio station's schedule. And podcasting, you download it, and whenever you're in the mood, you listen. It's a very different model. And the thing that I think all these different apps haven't figured out is that there's a reason people go to the podcasting model where they download when they feel like it or whenever there's something new, and they listen whenever they feel like it. That model works for people. They listen to podcasts when lifting, when driving, when doing housework, whatever they're doing. At their convenience, they listen to the shows they want to hear. And so Wisdom, Clubhouse, all these others, it's based on when you are doing something on your schedule or a radio station schedule. That's different. Like Wisdom, I'm guessing it'll notify people when someone goes live if they're following. But that depends again. So if I go on Wisdom or Clubhouse or those things and I'm on there and you happen to be on there at the time, you get to listen. If it's over, then it's over. Now, I think Wisdom allows you to go back later and re-listen to older episodes. And so you can do that. But I think that's streaming versus downloading. So that's why I don't think all these different ones are going to try to be an end to podcasting. It just probably won't work until they find a way to capture that model that podcasting has of a subscribe model. Not subscribe where you're paying for it, just it's a technical term, it's a publish subscribe model.
Yeah, a lot of things are the same thing wrapped just in a different package because, I mean, radio has been around for so long now, like so freaking long. And I remember someone saying like, well, radio is like the cockroach of the industry. It's like, we can never die. Like, we've survived TV, we've survived war until they take us out of the cars. Like, we're not going to die. And well, to be fair, and now like they kind of are taking you out of cars because now cars are coming with basically tablets in the dashboard and you can have applications and everything. And it's just like podcasting is radio. It's just instead of having to be localized and hindered to a local market because of how many watts you're like pushing out or whatever, you can be streamed globally. And instead of being hindered of being stuck with a local network and being part of a company that you're an employee of a network, you can start your own thing and be independent, and it would possibly be a harder uphill battle. But if you're able to actually grasp at something, you'll be able to obtain, almost all or all of it, because it's all of yours. So podcasting it's just radio. It's audio entertainment.
When Stephen Jobs came out with an iPod, and I know I'm dating myself. You sound like you're a little younger than me, so maybe you don't remember.
What's this iPod you speak of?
I remember going into a.
Is that a Rolodex?
Yeah, even fewer people know what that is. I went into a colleague of mine's office and I said, "This is the end of radio," because I saw an iPod as being able to download the music you want to listen to, and whenever you want to listen to it, and it's always the music you want to listen to, and you could plug it into a car, and I just thought that'd be the end of radio. And it seemed like a lot of people tuned out of a lot of radio stations that play music, but talk radio was still popular. And that became even more popular for people that listen to radio, because that became the thing that was on radio. I mean, there's still music stations, but a lot of them went out of business because people listen to their playlist. But yet radio's still around. And I just don't see it, maybe like you're saying, as they replace all the radio in cars with tablets, maybe people would get like Sirius FM or something like that, where they are getting radio that's an app, but then they're getting the stations they want. I mean, there's like iHeartRadio and things like that.
I think a lot of the things that have been really hit hard lately are a lot of the 24/7 type things and a lot of the localized type things. And what I mean by that are a lot of like the 24/7 type media services, whether that's news, like say like political news or sports news, or like 24/7, say music, like MTV, stuff like that. I think things like that have been hit hard because you can get news or sports news, political news. You can get music at the drop of a dime. Like all you have to do is go on your phone, go on your tablet, your computer, and you have it right there. So that's really, really quick. And then with the localized stuff, like everything's international. Like you don't need to be hindered to a local market. Like if you're a band, you don't need to play at like your local school or play to your local town. You can you can be a band in Vermont and have a fan base in India for some reason because of the internet. So you're not hindered to a local community anymore. So I think those demographics, I think those are the things that are in a way dying, where the international markets are striving, because there's like the internet obviously has just made it so easy to get a fan base internationally.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine. He was actually a marketing director of a radio station like 30, 40 years ago. And they had someone that was their big show that the guy was going off the air. He was retiring, and this guy filled in. And they didn't it was more of a talk show type thing, interview style show, and they didn't like some of the guests he had on. But all of a sudden they started getting calls from, Ireland, UK, and they were like, wait, all of a sudden they realized this guy has an international audience. So they kept him on for many years. He had his radio show, even though the station didn't agree with him. They loved that he brought in an international audience. So that has changed things. But, you talk about 24-hour cycles, and it's true. There's a very interesting book called How the News Makes Us Dumb. And it was very interesting what he had said, because we think of things in a 24-hour cycle. There's some things like music works well in a 24-hour cycle because you're not hearing the same song over and over again. But when it comes to news or talk radio or things like that, this author made the point that what ends up happening is we hear everything in small sound bites. So if you have a 1-hour news show, every hour they're repeating the same news. You're not actually getting more news. you're actually getting less news because they're just cramming everything that fits into 1 hour, and every hour they're having the same people share this, or different people share the same information. And so his argument was that, the news makes us dumb because we don't have people that read papers. My grandfather he would buy 5 different newspapers like each day. And he always told me, he's like, well, what he's doing is every newspaper had its own bias. And for him to get the real news, he would read all the different papers to get all the different biases. And he'd say that way you can see what really is happening, because one's going to give one side of a story, one's going to give the other side of the story. And by reading the multiple papers, you end up seeing all the different views that they have, and you get to what really happened. They don't do that in 24-hour news now. It's here's the one clip. I mean, now everything's down to a 5-second to 30-second soundbite. And let's just replay that over and over again. There's no context, of course, just replay that. And you never know what was actually said.
Yeah, I have to admit though, like I don't even know. I don't know what was real in the past, what's going to be real in the future, because it's that whole thing. Like, I was never there, so I don't.
You're not saying you don't believe that we landed on the moon, are you?
Wait, what's up?
You believe we actually landed on the moon. You're not going to start denying that, are you?
I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't even know what. Dude, that could be a hologram. I don't freaking know. It looks pretty cool when it's up there, though.
There's people that actually try to argue land on the moon, and it is kind of funny, because they just don't understand the science. To know, it's like, look, the flag is not waving. Yeah, it's called zero gravity.
Hey man, dude, listen. Do I believe that the moon exists? Yes. Do I know? Dude, remember that old claymation movie? What was it? Was it Wally? Is it Wally and Grimace? What's the old?
I'm pop culture illiterate.
It's not. I don't even know if it's pop culture. Fuck, what's that?
You're talking more Matrix. I don't know. Are you taking the red pill or blue pill? I
no,
do know that.
It's not a Why does everyone always do? I just saw the Matrix, like the first one, like around a year ago. I didn't even see it like in the 90s or in the early 2000s. You know what it is? I think it's because so much. You know what's annoying? So many people, I've been on the internet since like the heyday of the internet and beyond, like all the way until today, right? And so many people on the internet always do this whole like, do you believe what everyone tells you? It's like, no. Then why do you believe this? It's like, well, why would I believe you? You're just someone also who's telling me something. Like, I don't get it. Like, so why believe anyone who's telling me? Like, at the end of the day, all the information, or almost all the information I get or anyone gets, is from someone telling them something, unless you're actually just turning off everything and walking outside the door and actually deciding to live your life.
Well, maybe you've seen the quote, that's the meme that's online, that you shouldn't believe everything you read on the internet, quoted by Abraham Lincoln. It actually people to realize what just happened there. Like, there wasn't an internet during Abraham Lincoln's time. But yeah, I mean, the reality is that how do we know what we know? That's really what it comes down to, right? We know things, but how do we know them? Because every one of us can have a knowledge maybe based on experience, but can our experience be fooled? I mean, if anyone who's done certain drugs can have an experience that's not reality. So the question becomes, how do we know what's real, right? We have a knowledge base. If we can't base it on experience, because experience can fool us, we can have a perception of someone. Maybe someone's done that with you, where they think you believe something, or they think that you have a certain motives, and your motives, they're completely wrong, but you're looking at others look at this and they say, oh no, that's what you're really believing. I've had that experience myself, where people tell me what my motives are or what my thinking is. And I'm like, one of the two of us is an expert on what I'm thinking, and I don't think it's you. Right?
No, I get it. Where like you have a belief on something, or you have some beliefs on something. It's like, oh, well then you must believe like that. Like, then you have to believe this. It's like, why? Why? Like, why is it because I have this one belief I must also believe these 99 other fucking things? Like, that's not That's not how someone's individual life works. That's just how your thought process works.
Well, it comes to the question of, is there, and this is where I think the movie The Matrix, which I did watch recently because I was on a flight and I was bored because I didn't have any work to do. Well, it wasn't I didn't have, it was that my laptop wasn't booting. It was out of juice there. But
look how much had to happen for you to watch The Matrix. I was on a flight. I was bored. I didn't have work to do. My laptop was on the fritz.
I worked because the laptop didn't have battery.
The stewardess didn't have any cocktails ready. There was no peanuts. The kid was crying.
Yeah, no, fortunately the kid wasn't crying. Otherwise I wouldn't be able to, although maybe then the movie would drown it out.
Yeah.
The idea of The Matrix, from what I watched, it's the idea of what is reality? How do you know what's real is real? The idea that you could be living in the Matrix, everything you think your experience could be a computer simulation. I remember as a child, now I grew up in a different generation when you had, fear that the communists in Russia were going to invade and take over America. And I remember as we were maybe like 6 or 7 years old, and we'd hear this, we'd have to hide under our desk. And I remember talking with a friend, and he's like, how do we even know there is a Russia? We see it on a map, but we've never been there.
Exactly, dude. Exactly.
The teachers, they do this exercise just to get us to obey them. And, they just laugh later saying, oh, look, they all hid under the desk.
Yeah, dude, I think I love your friend. I want to be best friends with your friend. That's dude, that might be the smartest thing I ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I mean, but that gets into the question, how do we know what is reality, right? We have our experiences. That's something that informs us, right? We have our senses, sight and sound and smell, things like that inform us, but they're not an ultimate authority because they could be fooled.
Yeah, and the words reality and everything are just things they're just things that came out of our mouths. They're words that came out of us that we created. Like we created these words. If we created these words and like creation, everything I'm saying, it's just what is it? It's stuff. Stuff's just it's nonsense. It's craziness. It's weird. Like everything about this existence is really weird. Like because like we know what existence is because existence is a word that is created. The definition was created for that word, for those group of letters that were connected together to create that word existence.
Many people know this quote. They don't understand what was behind the quote. I think, therefore I am. And what this was an attempt to continuously question you, using the idea of questioning everything to try to get back to, can we prove existence? And eventually what was proven was the fact that we think, that proves that we exist. Now, what most people don't know is what he was doing was not just saying that I exist, because he got to the further question of, if I exist, that proved God exists, because we would have to have something that created us. And so ultimately, where it's quite interesting, because a lot of people who would be more in an atheist agnostic camp will use that quote to try to deny God, and yet that quote comes from someone that used it to actually say God exists.
Did you say agnostic or diagnostic? I thought you were about to like work on my computer or something.
Atheist or agnostic.
Gotcha.
Though I could work on your computer.
I was like, oh shit, do I got like an IT problem? All right.
Oh yeah. Hold on. You don't realize I already hacked into your computer ago, and I've taken it over.
You're now controlling the OBS broadcast of this episode.
Yeah, when you see my picture come up, you'll know.
Oh, geez, that would be creepy as fuck. All right, so no, keep going. You seemed like you're on a roll. My bad.
It's just the you look at something like that where people could take a clip out of its context, right? I think, therefore I am, and use that to prove the exact opposite of what the author was trying to prove with it. And so it's something that the fact that we know things, right? Where you and I both think, and that ability to think proves existence. And that is the thing that, when we look at that, in philosophy, right? People want to get to how do we figure that out? Well, Descartes' way of just going, okay, well, let me continue to ask questions, to question everything. Ultimately, he gets back to the fact that we can prove we exist because we think. We have a consciousness. However, that consciousness is something that is immaterial, right? I mean, you and I can look at material things. I'm looking at my microphone and my computer and my desk, and those are material things. Those are produced from material things. So we can sit and say, if you believe there was a big bang that, of a massive amount of energy that exploded into everything, what do you have? You have a chemical-based system that produces all the materials that we have. But our thinking is immaterial. Our existence, our consciousness is immaterial. How do you create that? And so his argument would be that the fact that we think means that we exist. The fact that we exist means that God exists. And that would be his way of argument. But when people take that out of context and clip it, right, they can use it to try to argue the exact opposite of what Descartes was arguing.
And now when you say, so when he's saying, if you're able to think, that means you exist, meaning God exists if you exist, right? Now, now if you're saying someone clips that and they argue it, what exactly are they arguing? Like, what do you mean? Like, well, now they can argue that. What do you mean by that?
Well, the way a lot of those that would be claimed to be atheists or agnostics that don't believe God exists or they're not sure God exists, they would say the fact that we think, therefore we are, meaning that we're just a bunch of biological chemical reactions that are doing nothing more than just reacting. And our thinking is the product of a chemical reaction. Here's where that breaks down. There's certain things that are immaterial, things that the human mind isn't producing. I always go to the laws of logic or morality. But if you look at the laws of logic, because that one's, I think, an easier one for us to think about in this, is people often say that the laws of logic were produced by the human brain. Humans thought them. But we can work that backwards and see. The second law of logic is the law of non-contradiction. So that means you can't have A and not A at the same time in the same way. That's the technical way of explaining it. Let me explain.
Yeah, Andrew, you're talking shop. Explain, please.
So you can't have $20 in your wallet and not have $20 in your wallet at the same time in the same way. In other words, you could have had $20 in your wallet, but then you went and paid a bill, and now you don't.
That's not true.
Well, you can't have the $20 and not $20 in the same time.
Yeah, if you had two 20s in your wallet, and then you bought something that was $20, you have $20 in your wallet, and now you don't have $20 in your wallet because at one point you had two 20s in your wallet.
Well, no, you still have a 20 in your wallet, though.
Yeah, and now you don't have a 20 in your wallet.
But you don't have, but if the question is you still have
I think I just proved God.
No. It's the idea that when we say you have a $20 bill.
I think I'm Jesus Christ. I think hold on. Well, I think I just did it.
Well, so the idea of it though is that you can have a Monopoly money $20 bill.
Okay.
And and that's different than a US dollar bill, right? That's the idea the same way. So when you look at this, before there was a human mind, and all of us agree there was a time before a human mind. You may say that it was millions of years. I would say it was 6 days. Okay? We have a difference there. But there was a time before there were humans on the earth. Everyone agrees to that. The question then becomes, could the universe have existed and at the same time, in the same way, not existed? The answer is no. That's impossible. It can't exist and not exist at the same time in the same way. That would violate the law of non-contradiction. So then what you end up with is that you end up seeing that these laws that we have that are immaterial had to exist before a human mind. So they're not the creation of human minds. Now, if you get into physics, and this I won't go into deeply, but if you get into quantum physics, The idea is when we look at subatomic particles and quantums, there is a movement that we see within the quantums where it seems like a quantum will disappear and reappear in a different place. And people will say, well, see, that proves that the law of non-contradiction doesn't exist. I would say that that just proves we don't have the technology yet to see what's happening in the quantum realm. I mean, it hasn't been around that long, and we don't have the instruments to really know yet. I mean, if you just think about it, 100 years ago, the atom was the smallest thing that anyone ever thought of, till we got better equipment to be able to go even smaller than an atom. And so when you look at this, the question becomes, what created that immaterial part of us? And that's really what he was getting to with the I think, therefore I am, so I exist. But if I exist and I have the ability to think, someone had to give me that. That had to be created from somewhere, something. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. Well, I think that's the thing, though. I think when it comes to science, their game, and I say theirs because I'm not a scientist. I'm not smart. So I'm not going to act as if like I'm on the, I don't know if what's right or what's wrong, God, not God, in between, blah, blah, blah. Their game is the long man's game. You find an answer, but you realize it's not the end all be all. You keep digging, you find a new answer, and then that answer, it doesn't go, oh, well, that's it, cool, well, that's it, we're done. That usually an answer in science then begins like a litany of new questions, like, oh shit, now we have hundreds or thousands of new questions. And it's almost like, it's actually a beautiful thing, though. That's actually a really cool thing with science, because it really intrigues humans' natural curiosity. And I think that's one of the really cool aspects of humans, is that we're very curious beings. And I love that about humans. We get a really bad rep, but one of the good things about us is that we're curious, and we like to expand, and we like to build, and we like to create, and we just like to solve things and figure out things. And with science, we kind of like, we create this we create equations to do it. So yeah, like when you solve an answer, it's not the be all end all. So with science, you kind of, it takes time and patience, where I think a lot of conflict with people who are, say, atheist. I won't even say agnostic. I think they're a little bit more chill. The atheists are the ones who usually online are the ones who are the little whiny bitches or whatever. But usually with the people who are really hardcore religious people and the people who are really hardcore atheist people, I think the conflict really arises with a lot of religious people are very like set on their ways of, nah, it's this, like, we know it. And then like the atheists are just going like, no, that's not the answer. Like that can't be the answer. It's just like, you guys are kind of like, you're playing two different sports, and you're trying to get the same goal. Like, you're trying to find the same answer in with two different games. You know, you can't win Monopoly playing the game of life, and you can't win the game of life while playing Monopoly.
Well, actually, no. I mean, first off, if humans get a bad rap, we give it to ourselves, because we're the ones that create the rap that we that we give ourselves, right? But it's not actually different games. We're actually playing the same game. It's the same game with the same evidence. And you're right that people are curious, and the science will discover new things. And sometimes the science that we discover today will prove that what was believed in the past was wrong. And therefore, you know, can we really trust when a scientist says this is what the science proves out? Well, that's what it proves out today, but tomorrow it could be different. You know, there used to be, before Einstein, there was this idea that there was this ether, this invisible object between you and I that would be there, and he ended up proving there is no such thing. And so that dropped. That there was no more talk of that. Why? Because he was able to prove that that doesn't exist. That sort of thing does happen in the scientific study. That does cause us to continue, as you said, to look for more things. But I don't think it's two different games. I think it's the same game of trying to figure out, how do we know what we know? And we approach it from two different aspects. So if someone, you know, is going to approach it that this world is all we know, we're a bag of chemical reactions, We're just the result of chemical reactions. Everything that happened is just one chemical reaction with another chemical reaction. That is one view. The other view would be God created everything. So do I believe in a big bang? I would say, yeah, God said, let there be light, and bang, it happened, right? So that would be a big bang, right? But the reality is that the way of approaching it is either God existed or God exists, and therefore he created everything, or there is no God that exists, and everything is just the product of random chance and chemical reactions. Now, we could look at that and say, now, in the physical world, we can see, a husband and a wife get together, produce a child. That's a physical creation. We can look at that. We can look at an amoeba that splits itself, and then we could look at things like that and see in the physical realm. We can see and study, and this is how scientific method is done, right? You create an experiment, you observe it, you record it, you can reproduce it. So what do we see? We can see the physical reproducing. What we don't see and can't see is the immaterial reproducing. So really where the battle becomes is the immaterial world. I mean, if you take, I'm sure you did this in school, you take baking soda, you built a clay or plaster Paris volcano, and you put some baking soda in it, and then you put some vinegar, and it foams over, and you have your experiment of a volcano. Now, maybe you didn't do like me, because I figured if 1 tablespoon of baking soda with 1 tablespoon of vinegar created a little bit of foam, I put a full cup in my volcano and filled it with baking soda, and then put like a whole cup of vinegar. It makes a nice mess on the floor for first grade.
You were you were way ahead of the TikTok game, man. You were fucking light years ahead of the TikTok game.
Yeah. Why do it? Follow the instructions that say do 1 tablespoon when you could do a bigger project.
What's amazing is that like people are now getting millions of views on TikTok doing that, like for like things that kids used to do just like to piss off their teacher 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah, because I wasn't the one that had to clean it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dude, you're a kid. Nobody like who the fuck? Who cares, dude?
Clean up the time when I had. I don't know if they still have them nowadays. The little green army men. But
no, they don't, Andrew. They don't have the little green army men anymore.
Hey, there's a lot of things they don't have anymore.
No,
I used to the little green army men, and I had the guy with the flamethrower. So I took my Bunsen burner from my chemistry set, and I made him. So I had a real flamethrower, and I just burned I melted all the other green army men to the kitchen table.
Dude, I'm getting my girl. She's got a younger brother, and I'm getting old, man. I am getting old. Like I'm seeing what kids are doing now, and I'm just like, fuck, man. I'm becoming that old guy. I'm just like, I'm starting to say like, oh man, he's gonna miss out on this, or he doesn't even know what like a VCR is. Like it was an alien concept to him. I had 6 heads when I brought it up. Had no idea what the acronym even like was. In my head, I'm like, oh man, I'm becoming. It was like that scene from what was it, like 12 Angry Men or something, where it's like, I've become my father. It's like Jesus Christ, dude. Like I felt so old.
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing of you probably don't even, they definitely won't know what a beta system was, Betamax. So it's really that lost the VCR debate, But yeah, no, it is a thing that as we think about things, you take that baking soda and vinegar and you mix those together. What comes out? Well, that's a chemical reaction. Could you say that is morally good or evil? No, it just is, right? A chemical reaction just is. And yet every single one of us, we know the difference between good and evil. We understand that. Where do we get that from? It can't come from a chemical reaction. And so the argument becomes the atheist. So I think it's saying it's the same board game. The atheist is saying that comes from chemical reactions. It comes from a product of our thinking and our brain. And the Christian is going to say, no, that is coming from the nature of God. Now, here becomes where it's different. From a Christian perspective, I would say that, things like morality are absolute and universal. It is wrong to murder everywhere. It's wrong to lie everywhere. Those things are universally wrong everywhere. Why? Because God's not a murderer and God's not a liar. It's based in his nature. Where an atheist is going to say, no, that's just the what we generate. We think we don't want people to lie to us, therefore we shouldn't lie to others, so we create that. But we see cultures where they justify murder. I mean, you could look at the Nazi regime and see that in their view, they felt that Jewish people, and that's my background, so I've studied the Holocaust quite a lot in Hebrew school. But what their view was that the Jewish people were not fully human, and therefore, in the belief of evolution, what they thought was if they get rid of the Jewish people, the blacks, the gypsies, the handicapped, they would create a superior race. And so they sanctioned the murder of 11 million people. People sometimes only talk about the 6 million Jewish people, but there were 11 million people murdered by them. For what? For the betterment, for the better good.
Well, there's around 50 to 80 million people roughly overall who died in World War II.
Yeah. Well, if you actually look at, like, you put together when communism took over, and that's the thing people don't understand. The fascists were actually against communism. That was their real target.
Well, yeah, Russia, in terms of the countries that had the most fatalities, Russia had the most fatalities in World War II.
Well, Russia and China. See, we don't put China in World War II, but if you look at when communism took over there, hundreds of there's actually more people that died because of communism, which would be an atheist. So communism is basically socialism, but they have an atheist component to it. So more people died under atheism in as far as communism than in all the religious wars put together. But there's a logical reason for that too. There's more people alive now than ever in history, and so it becomes kind of not a fair argument, because people that used to fight in religious wars, or where they used religion, like you look at the Crusades where they used religion to try to use for war. You look at even in today where people will use Islam to try to argue for warfare. That's not really fighting for religion in my mind as much as it is the use of it.
Can't the argument be made that we live in a time where there are more people who are not religious percentage wise than are religious? Like, it seems like today there are a huge amount of people who aren't religious today, and we live in a very peaceful, like, people might not think of it because of the TV and everything, but in terms of war and everything and death percentage wise, and like you just said, like, there are more people than ever were there. This is actually it actually is a peaceful time in terms of how the population is growing.
Well, so I would disagree with it because of the fact that people think that irreligious people, what they call irreligious people, are not religious. It's a crazy thing to think about, but most of the people that claim to be atheists think about God more than most religious people do. Okay? I mean, they've reordered, for a lot of them, they reorder their entire life around a belief about a belief of a being they say doesn't exist. Crazy thing to think about, but that is the reality. Most of them are very religious. It's just a different religion. Now granted, here in America, atheism is actually a religion. 2009, the Supreme Court ruled atheism is a religion. That freaks people out. But it was a court case where a guy was in jail. He was arguing that he should get the freedoms to practice his religion. His religion, he wanted to practice atheism and be able to get on the internet and research atheism, where other people got privileges in jail to be able to go for worship services. And so he actually sued and won. The Supreme Court ruled that atheism is a religion. He got his time to go to the prison library and get on the internet.
If that's true, if atheists, if they were smart, they would fucking sign up for that because they would get a tax break.
Well, they have already. So it is kind of funny that there was an atheist church that was I forget what year that one started, but it was within 2 years the church had a split. But it was an atheist church, and they were looking for the tax break, and they were doing all kinds of things. But what did you end up seeing? They weren't doing it for the real motive that, when you see a Christian church, the thing that unites them is Jesus Christ. Now, this is a little bit different than any other religion. Okay, I will say that Christianity is unique because every other religion is focused about a set of moral systems, doing certain things to keep moral. Christianity is not that. It's around a person. And so in that sense, it's one of three things that makes Christianity unique. And that's why I say that there is an objective way to examine, when you look at all the religions in the world, there's an objective way to figure out which one's true, which one's reality, which one's right. And because there's certain things about biblical Christianity that makes it unique from any other religion. One example is, like I said, it's not a system of morality. If you have a man-made religion, it's going to be a bunch of, here's what you do to try to earn your way to God. So in my background, Judaism, not biblical Judaism, but the Judaism we'd have today, which would be called rabbinic Judaism, we would do Torah, obey the law. You do good deeds. You do what the law, and the law would be the commands in the first 5 books of the Bible. You do that, and you're going to earn yourself heaven. If you look at Roman Catholicism, they would say, you have faith plus work. So again, it's what you do, those actions you do that are going to earn you a right to be with God. If you look at Islam, it's do one good deed to weigh out 10 bad. Now, mentioning these different religions, I should say, I've written a book on world religions. So I spent 14 years studying these religions from their sources. So I don't just say things off the cuff.
Drop the book. What's the name of the book?
It's called What Do They Believe? And so what I did was not only systematize what these different religions believe, the major Western religions, but I went to authorities in those religions and said, am I accurate? Now, this is something people don't do. What most people do is they put something out and they say, Islam believes that once you die, you have 70 virgins. No, they don't. They don't. That's not in the Quran. Now, there are certain sects of Islam, but you can't say all of Islam believes that. And so there is a difference when you say that that's what Islam believes. You have to be fair with what Islam actually believes and not say that all of them believe something that only one minor sect may believe. That would be dishonest. And so because I didn't want to be dishonest, I went and verified it. And so what you end up noticing, though, is every man-made religion is going to be based on man being able to earn his way some way or somehow. We do something to get this God that created everything, to get him to be on board with us, really, to get him to approve of us. And so what you end up seeing is every man-made religion is going to have that. So all you have to do is look at every religion and say, which one has a human element to it, that it's faith plus works, or we do good deeds, or Buddhism, Hinduism, the things we do in this life affect our next life. And when we finally are pure and cleansed of all of our wickedness, we come to nirvana, we come to that ultimate state of realizing we're God. But that's still based on what we do. I remember outside of NYU at Washington Square Park, and I was having an open air discussion with a professor from NYU, and he was a Buddhist. And he said, Buddhism's not based on works. I said, well, what gets you from this life to have a better life in your next one? He says, that's based on the works you do. And the whole crowd started laughing. And he was looking, he couldn't figure it out. That he just said it's based on works, which is what I was saying. But Christianity is the only one that's based on what Jesus did. We could never, ever pay for what we've done. You and I both, and when we were on Wisdom, we talked about this. You and I both break God's law. Now, I may have broke it far more than you. It's not about who's better or worse on a morality scale. You may be a far more moral person than me, but we both admitted both of us are liars. Both of us, have stolen things. Both of us have been angry with someone.
When the fuck did... Oh, on Wisdom. I was about to say, when the fuck did I say that today? I know I have, but I don't know when the fuck I said it today. Holy shit.
But we both have been angry with people, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
look, I grew up in New Jersey. You can't drive on the roads in New Jersey.
I've wished, dude. I've wished Jesus would come down and just punch people in the face in New Jersey. Are you kidding me?
So what you end up seeing though is God judges our heart, not just our actions, and he looks at that and he says, if you're angry with another person, he judges that as murder of the heart. You didn't actually commit the murder, but he's going to judge our motives. So you look at that, and you and I would be guilty, right? Well, because he's an infinitely holy being, an infinitely just being, it has an infinite consequence. And that's why what makes Jesus unique is the fact that he's fully God. He can pay an infinite fine because he's an infinite being. But that wasn't enough. He also had to become a man and never break the laws that we break to be a substitute. And that's what makes Jesus unique. And then it's not based on our works, but it's what he did on the cross 2,000 years ago. When he died, he paid the fine. What do? We just accept that. We can't do anything. And so it makes that unique. And it's also a third thing that ends up doing is making, as far as Christianity being unique of any religion. If you look, for example, of Islam would always refer, when they refer to God, they're going to say, Allah most merciful. He's the most merciful. But the reality is you can't have mercy and justice at the same time in the same way. In other words, if the law said that if you smack me, I must smack you back, and I don't think you would smack me, but say that was the law, that if you smack me, I must smack you back. Justice would say I smack you. Mercy would say I let you go. But if I just tap you, I'm not showing justice or mercy. It's neither. The full justice would say the full weight of the punishment must be paid. Mercy would say the full weight of the punishment must be forgiven. The only way that could be resolved is that God himself took the full weight of what we do wrong, our sin, upon himself. And now that that's been paid, he can offer full mercy because we don't pay that penalty. And so those are some things that make it unique. And that's something you can look at objectively. I mean, you could just look at any religion and say, do they add human effort, or does God do all the effort? And that we can examine.
I want to know, do you believe in God? Or it's funny, after all that, it's like, hey, do you believe? No, but like, do you believe in God, or do you know that God exists?
I would say I know that God exists. I would say that we can't know anything if he did not exist, right? Because he gives us the ability to know things. Where do we get that from? We have to have because we have this immaterial knowledge, things like knowledge, truth, laws of logic, the ability to reason, a system of morality. Okay, really morality, not the system of it, but these are immaterial things. And so to have any of them, to have an ability to reason that God doesn't exist, requires a God-given reasoning to argue that God doesn't exist. And so that's why I would say, as the Bible says, a fool says in his heart, there is no God. Why? Because you're using your God-given ability to reason that God doesn't exist. But you wouldn't be able to have that reason if God didn't first exist. And so it becomes the dilemma. It's kind of like people argue over what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, the chicken came first because God created them. Well, God had to first come to give you the ability to know, for you to know whether God exists or not. So that's the long answer to yes, I believe God, I know God exists.
What about the people who they say they're not atheists? I guess these are people who are agnostic, just people who don't know. They just don't know if God exists.
Well, God says that they do know he exists. They just suppress that knowledge in unrighteousness. In other words, when you and I, we don't want to be accountable to God. I mean, in our human nature, neither one of us want to be accountable to God. We'd prefer to live our life our way, do whatever we want, and not be accountable to anybody, not even government if we could get away with it, right? We don't want to be accountable to anyone. Just let me live my life my way. But we are accountable. But people do funny things when they don't like that accountability. And we see that in culture when people don't want to be accountable to government. They'll protest, they'll riot, they'll do whatever goes on to try to fight against authority. Well, if you're against authority, that's right. You're going to do that. People do the same thing with God. I think that the idea of arguing that God doesn't exist is just a way of trying to convince ourselves that we're not accountable to him. If he doesn't exist, then we're not accountable to him. So let's convince ourselves he doesn't exist. And then I can live life any way I want.
I think I agree with you to an extent with the whole authority thing. I think back in the day, that would have made sense, almost like playing the minority or the contrarian kind of part of it. But now, at least in America, especially like when you're on like the outer states, like the Northeast, like New York, New Jersey, California, Florida, like where it's like, it seems overwhelming, like annoying fucking atheists just fucking like, man, God's not, what are you, retarded? Like, what are you still like, though, like just it, like people who like clearly like make YouTube videos to pander to one group of people where it's like, you're really like stand-up comedians still making anti-Christian jokes. It's like, bro, like, is this like, is this like 1980? Like what year is, like, I would say the anti-authority is actually making fun of them because they seem like the majority now. So I would say that's actually more anti-authority if you make fun of atheists now.
Yeah, it is. You're bringing up a pretty funny topic. I've brought this up myself many times, is the fact that what you end up seeing is people are saying, we think outside the box. We're independent thinkers. We don't follow with the majority. But then why are you in the majority? And if you bring up anything that disagrees with you, you think that's stupid.
I mean, dude, I don't get it. I see so many stand-up comedians still making like not even anti like Muslim jokes or anti-Jewish, like anti-Christian jokes that I would see like comedians in the early 1980s when comedians used to wear suit and ties where TV we can't really afford color TV, so let's still do black and white. It's like, dude, what the fuck is going, like, are you still like, do you still think this is an original joke? Like, this is like, you actually wrote this and go, you know what, this is the year 2021, I think this is an original bit right here. I think this is going to work. This is going to kill it tonight at the Comedy Cellar. I can't, it blows my fucking mind, Andrew. It really does blow my mind.
You know who are the least free-thinking group of people? Those that claim to be free thinkers. Because they think in the
you mean the people who claim to be alpha males are not really alpha males?
Those who say, well, I'm a free thinker. They always, I'm a free thinker. I think for myself. And yet you think like the collective. And presented with anything outside of the collective, you deny it. You go, no, that's not real. Why? Because you're not a free thinker.
You usually when like you have to go out of your way to labeling yourself over and over again, like something's like, not always, I should like, because that you're assuming when you do, like I'm assuming when I do that, but it does annoy me when someone has to like label themselves on Twitter like, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. It's like, dude, can't you just like, why can't you just take a breath, like take a fucking breather, Sarah? Jesus Christ.
I do find that when you have people that are like, they have to identify themselves as smart. Like there's a group of atheists. There's a blog. It was like, atheists are smart. Well, if you have to tell us that, then it's not obvious from your argumentation.
Now, wait, Andrew, to be fair, throwing stones here, you have to identify everyone that you're religious.
Well,
come on.
I'm doing that for two reasons. One, God said so, and since He created us, He knows better than me.
Don't come on. You can't always. That can't be your cop out each time.
But I didn't stop there. But what am I doing? I'm basing it off the behavior. I'm not saying that I see.
Now you're gonna make me feel bad.
It would be different if I'm saying that I'm religious, therefore I'm like, see, having to say I'm religious, you would know that by what? My behavior. If I say that I'm smart, how would you know that? By what I say and what I know, right? So if you have to tell people they're smart, kind of like, and okay, I hope no one in your audience has a smart car, but I've always used to joke that, people that have the smart car are dumb, because it's like this little tiny thing. You get in an accident in a smart car, you're dead. Okay, that's not smart, right? But now a smart car is named that because it's more focused on, they're saying we're smart because we care for the economy. So that's why it's named. I mean, it's, I guess dumb people get smartphones too, if I'm going to be consistent, right? So, and I have a smartphone, so that must make me dumb. But no, the idea
I hope that's not your opener tonight.
But the fact is that when people have to identify themselves as I am smart, let the evidence show that. You don't have to say that, like, because the worst thing is when you say I am smart and then people find out, no, you're not as smart as you think.
I feel like if you brought cookies to Christmas Eve and people started talking shit about the recipe, you'd be like, well, God gave me this recipe. So it's like, come on, there's gotta be something that's your fault every now and then, right?
A lot of things are my fault. Yeah. Every time I lie, that's my fault. No, I wouldn't say, I would not say that that comes from God unless the Bible said so.
Where does the fault begin? Where does it end from it being like God and it begin for human? Like, where's the transition from God letting go of the leash and then humans now taking the wheel?
Okay, so that is kind of a philosophical question there, a little different than what we were just saying. So that's different than me saying that I'm smart versus looking at evidence that I'm smart. So it's a different category. But when we examine that, it is a thing of God is in control of everything, but that doesn't mean God forces everything. So there's a difference that we would understand about the nature of God that we can't understand with humans. In other words, you and I know things from cause and effect. I'm going to, drive into a telephone pole and it's going to kill me. Well, that's a cause and effect type of thing. God is in control of things, but he works through humans to do things. And so in that sense, can we say that God's in control of everything? Yes. But does that mean God forces everything? No, we actually make the decisions. So even though God is working within us in a way that we can't understand, and the fact that we can't understand things it should make sense, right? Because if God can create an entire universe that we still haven't comprehended, he should be greater than our ability to understand them. So there's going to be things we can't comprehend. If it's a biblical, or right God, that's going to be the case. So it's not if I don't fully understand God, he doesn't exist. If I fully understand God, that God can exist because he's a God of my own mind. But the fact is that God, in a way that we can't comprehend, works through us so that, yes, he's in control of everything. He doesn't force everything. So you and I make decisions, right? You decided to invite me on the show. You may regret that decision. Like, I never want that guy on again. But you're still welcome on my Apologetics live show any Thursday night. But that's what that show is. We welcome everybody in.
Definitely, dude. 100%. I don't know what Thursday I'm coming on, but like if that door's still open, I definitely want to just come running in.
That's the whole purpose of the show. We open it to any challenges. You just go to apologeticslive.com. We'll have a show like the show that we had that we talked about on wisdom that you knew was about Mormonism. But we'll have a topic. But anyone can come in at any time and ask any question or give a challenge, about God and the Bible. And if you ask me something, that has nothing to do with God and the Bible, I mean, if you ask about things that are like, well, what do you do with dinosaurs? As a Christian, we can answer that. If you go, why did dinosaurs have big teeth? I'm going to say, actually, I could argue that from the Bible.
What? What the fuck? Really?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, most people think that dinosaurs have sharp teeth for the purpose of eating other animals.
Okay.
Yet the Bible says that they didn't do that before the flood. And so people will say, well, then why would they need sharp teeth? Why would you need a T-Rex with these sharp teeth? And there are animals we know of today that eat vegetables or eat other things that are not meat and have sharp teeth. For
Wait,
example,
Andrew, pump the brake. Pump the brake. Say vegetables one more time.
vegetables.
No. Say it like you said it before.
Oh, I don't know how I said it before.
You said vegetables. You said it like a third grade camp instructor. All right, guys, we're going to be having fruits and vegetables today. And yes, for desserts, we do have airheads and we do have the mystery airheads. And we all know it's apple flavored. It's not really a mystery.
All right. You have a young daughter. I will give, depending how young,
I do not have a young daughter.
Oh, I thought you said you have a young your daughter has a.
No, when the fuck did I say I had a daughter? No, I have a girl who has a younger brother.
A girl has okay. Forgive me.
My girl. When I say I have a girl, I mean I have a girlfriend. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So okay, if your girlfriend and you end up having kids, I'll give you the secret.
Oh, jeez.
Getting your kids to eat vegetables and fruits.
Okay.
So what we did whenever our kids were well behaved, they got fruits and vegetables. That's all that's what they got as a reward. They didn't get candy. They got fruits and vegetables. I went to this father-daughter dinner, and this is one of those things that fathers don't expect to hear from their daughters. We're sitting at the father-daughter dinner, and my daughter looks and says, "Daddy, can I have more green beans?" I was like, "No, not until you finish your meat, dear." And this father sitting next to me just about dropped out of his seat, and he said, "Did I just hear what I thought I heard?" I said, "Yeah, she prefers her vegetables and her fruits over." Over meat, yes. All right. Because she thought it was a reward, which tells us this is the interesting, and people can do this, and they'll see.
Yeah.
You reward your children with fruits and vegetables, right? They think it's a treat. It wasn't until my kids got to school that they would get sweets for a reward, and suddenly they had a desire for sweets.
Dude, this whole world script, we give the barking dog the reward. It's like, oh, just give it a treat so it'll stop barking. It's like, if you keep doing that, it's gonna keep barking so it gets another treat, you dingbat.
Correct. Yeah, so that gets back to like when we talk about system of morality, there are levels of things we can actually kind of control in a sense. We can manipulate. I purposely wanted my kids to enjoy fruits and vegetables. So what did I do? I rewarded them with that. They thought that's a good thing. They would sit there and be like, they can't wait to get an apple because that was a reward, or broccoli. That was a reward. So they looked forward to those things.
Actually, wait. Oh no, go ahead, Andrew. Say your thing real quick.
To wrap up the other thing. The other thing is we have koala bears that have very sharp teeth today, and they eat bamboo, not meat. So you can't have sharp teeth without being a meat eater. So go to your question.
Yeah, I was actually, because we brought up animals. So how does like God and Christianity and religion and everything, like, what are your thoughts on that? With like, we eat animals that feel pain. There are a ton of animals that eat animals that feel pain and everything. Like, what's all the laws on morality and everything with that? Like, what's, like, please, like, I know that these are like basic questions and everything, but I'm talking to you, man. So I just want to know your thoughts on it.
So the Bible would end up saying there's kind of three groups. We'd have plant life that we call life, but in the Bible, it wouldn't be called a life. They're plants. And so they would be where they don't have, they reproduce. So in the scientific way of defining life, it would be life. In the biblical way of looking at life, it wouldn't have a life. And therefore, eating plants, vegetables, fruits, there would be nothing immoral about that. And so before the flood, that seems to be the case, that everyone was vegetarian, including the animals. Now, animals we would see as different than humans. Humans are made in the image of God, and what that means is that we have certain attributes that God has, such as a self-consciousness. Animals don't have that. You don't see animals they don't set up a court system, for example. There's systems where people will say, well, animals have morality. You could look at vampire bats, for example. Vampire bats will go out at night and they go, bite a cow, drink its blood, come back to the collective. When they get together, you will have a bat that then if some of the bats didn't get any food, they will share. If there's a bat that got food and doesn't share, the other bats just naturally will put their back to that one and push it out. And then once that bat is marked, he's not allowed back in the collective. So now he's on his own. they will say, well, see, that's a system of morality. You'll have a similar thing with penguins, the empire penguins, where it's very cold and you have the male penguins, they have the egg on their feet in the Antarctic, and they sit there for months, 3-4 months, where they're going to sit and they walk around in this circle. And the way that God has created them, they will just continue to move into the center of the circle to keep warm, and then to the outer of the circle, then back in. And that's how they survive. They survive by using the heat of one another, getting into the center of the circle to warm up, and then moving out. And that's how they spend 3-4 months just walking. And if one of them doesn't move to the outer part of the circle, all the others will push that one out and never let him back in. And then eventually he and his egg die. Now, is that a system of morality? I would say that's what God built into those animals for their own survival, an instinct. You don't see them getting together and discussing that. We do, right? We have people that may do something that's bad to society, and then we look at it and go, well, let's look at other circumstances. Let's have a court system that evaluates that. They're not doing that because they don't have a self-existence. They have instinct. And so after the flood, it seems that God allowed for the killing of animals, not of humans, of animals for food. And so they would not have the image of God, and they would be in a different category. And therefore, anyone can eat vegetables, fruits, plants. Animals was after the flood that was allowed.
Why all of a sudden someone dropped a glass of water and it's like, yeah, you can just fucking choke them out and then, yeah, you can eat them. Like, what happened? Like, why?
Not sure. I mean, because the Bible doesn't tell us, so I can't answer what it doesn't say.
We need some of those nifty little scientists with their lab coats and stethoscopes to look into that.
See, but they can't, right? Because
we need them.
Because they can't apply the scientific method to history, right? And so there's a different.
Well, maybe they can find a new equation, and then just like, hey, to be fair, science has proven past science wrong, so they can figure out a new method that proves in the old scientific method false, and be like, all right, now we can apply this to religious stuff. I mean, maybe.
One argument that some people have made is that the eating of animals is for the purpose of. One argument is as humans continue to multiply, it becomes a food source where there may not be enough plant source. I would argue there's a lot of area of the earth that's, inhabited with plants that, we could probably eat. The other thing is the argument would be to keep the animal population down. So animals eating other animals is one of the main ways of keeping animal population.
Do you think it's morally okay to kill and eat an animal?
I'm going to get myself in trouble maybe with some of your listeners, but yes.
Andrew, first off, some of my listeners, he said,
maybe you.
What do you think this podcast is global or so? Who do you think? You, me, and God. That's who's. By the way, there's an echo. I don't know if you took out your headphones or something. It's you, me, and God. That's who's listening to this podcast.
Once I promote it,
Yeah. Oh, dude. By the way, please. We'll talk after we stop recording. But yeah, we'll talk about promoting each other and everything afterwards. Yeah. No. Seriously. Do you think it's morally okay to kill and eat an animal?
I have a video that's I guess kind of was well known. I was in New York City. It's called I forget. I'm trying to remember.
You stomping out a raccoon? Like what are we talking about, Andrew?
It was called. I think it was called Open Air Preaching with a Demon Possessed Heckler.
Oh, jeez.
And I was at a vegan festival.
Oh my God, jeez.
Well, I was at Union Square in New York City, and they had they rented out or got a permit to do a vegan protest, and so I got up to do open air.
No,
and this guy,
why'd you do this?
Oh, because I was asked a question. Now you have to understand. I'm sitting there, and I have just my voice. I was not amplified. We had a guy that had amplification. He ended up leaving later because he said he couldn't compete with my voice, which was just tells you how loud I can get. But he was challenging me, and then some other people came up and started challenging me. And the guy says, this one guy was like, do you eat meat? I said, I'm a hunter. And he was like, yeah, but do you eat meat? I'm like, I said, I'm a hunter. I kill what I eat. Right? Which I think is better because I'm not it's actually better for the animals, run free, not be in cages and, just to be born for the sake of being slaughtered and food. I think it's more, you can't really say humane, but better, for animals that are run free and then you eat them. But yeah, I do eat meat. I enjoy eating meat.
No, but do you think it's morally right to kill and eat meat?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Now you've hunted before because you're a hunter. Have you ever killed close up, or have you always been far? Like, what was the closest kill you've ever had?
Well, I use bow and arrow.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to be within a couple. The closest you'd be is probably 10 yards, but within 40 yards, 50 yards.
Do you think you would ever have the stomach to like actually be behind an animal and slit its throat, or stab it in the heart?
Well, if I saw an animal that was, like if I've shot an animal, like if I shoot a deer and it isn't dead, then yeah, I would do that, put it out of its misery as quick
I
as I
think
could.
but that's different though, because that way you're like morally justifying it. I mean, like you're going up to like Mama Rabbit and she's just like about to feed all her little baby rabbits, and you're just like, I really want rabbit tonight, and you just grab it by its ears and you just go, wah! Like, would you be okay with that?
The difference between shooting that rabbit at 10 yards with a bow versus slitting its throat with a knife, right?
You said there's no difference. Oh, you said there's no difference.
Yeah, what would be the difference?
I
would say no.
I'm asking. I'm not saying there is or there isn't. I'm asking.
Yeah, I wouldn't see a difference there.
I'm also not answering that question because I'm not a demented human being like Andrew Rappaport over here, ladies and gentlemen, who goes to New York City and heckles vegans.
No. They were heckling me.
I'm fucking with you, dude. I'm totally fucking with you.
The one guy that started the heckling left because he couldn't compete with my voice.
He left because he had to see a therapist afterwards.
I would be better than him.
Dude, man, this has been awesome, man. I totally definitely in the future while I have you on. This was cool, man. This was a really cool episode. Is there anything else you want to say before we close it out?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if I would say this, I mean, we talked about some of the things that were important to me, at least, and that is, really what happens a second after we die, and the only thing I would say to you, and for anyone listening, would be is every one of us, you and I both, are guilty before God. We break God's law, we lie and we steal, we do things that God would say are criminal in His sight. But God made a way of escape. God Himself, Jesus Christ, came to earth, died on a cross so we could be forgiven. We can't do anything to earn that. We don't deserve it, but God offers that. And what we do is we accept that. We turn from trusting ourselves as a good person or good works and turn and trust what Jesus Christ did. And if you do that, my challenge, my encouragement, I guess, would be is to get a Bible and read what it says.
Nice.
And that would be it.
Now let's go eat some bunnies. All right, guys. Monday Morning Dullard out. Have a good one, guys.